Hello, Grace Community Church. Today is June 17, and we're continuing cover to cover through the Bible. And today we are looking at 2 Chronicles chapter 21 and 22 and 2 Kings chapters 9 and 10. Now, I wanted to give just a little background. Hopefully you've figured this out already. But at this point in history, Israel is divided into two countries. Now, you remember the first king of Israel? Saul. There's one small nation. Then there is King David, and there is one larger nation. And then there is King Solomon, which brings the nation to its greatest extent, almost all the way to Egypt and all the way to the Euphrates River. But now the kingdom is divided. It happened after Solomon. There was a king named Rehoboam, and because of his poor leadership, the kingdom divides. And so you have the northern kingdom, usually called in scripture Israel, sometimes poetically called Ephraim, which is one of the sons of Joseph, and down the southern kingdom, usually called the kingdom of Judah. This is the land of the Philistines. Here's the Jordan River, the Dead Sea, but that gives you an idea of what the land looked like. Now, I'm going to go to this next slide, and I don't really expect you to be able to see it on the screen, but I want to give you this idea. This is Judah. This says Israel. And what you have is there's Rehoboam. There was the idiot who, in his poor leadership, divided the kingdom. And then you have the kings of Israel, and then the kings of Judah. Judah had some good kings. Israel had no good kings. Today, though, we actually have one of the kings of Israel that came the closest to being a good king. But when you read the story of Jehu, you realize he's really a vile man. And what you have here, there's Jehu. So all these kings have happened already. And today we deal with Jehoram, and then Ahaziah are kings that we deal with, and then the queen Athaliah. And you might say, yeah, there was a queen. Well, it's because Ahaziah died so young. So what I wanted you to see, though, is these lists of kings, just from your perspective. Some of them are well known to history outside of the Bible. For example, like Omri, pretty famous outside of the Bible, just through archaeological evidence. But when we look at these kings and understand these stories, you see this phrase happen: he was a good king like his father, or he was a bad king. And often the father that's referred to is David, or it could be that a good king preceded him, like Jehoshaphat. And boy, the prophet says, you weren't a good king like your father was. So here are some things that emerge in this passage. In 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 10, here's what the author says. This happened because he abandoned the Lord. Now, that is the author of an inspired scripture saying that sometimes bad things happen because that particular person did not choose to follow the Lord. With that in mind, I look at that and I see I want to be a person who follows the Lord. What happens in life is in God's hands. I can't control that. But I can control whether I am a serious follower of the Lord. I take note of that. Here's another thing that comes up. The phrase, the Lord stirred up the enemies. So when we see an enemy attack, in this case, Judah, the text says, God stirred those enemies up. Why? Apparently as a discipline for Judah not following the Lord. Now, in our own world, in our own time, I know the United States is not Israel. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But can a country be evil? Can a country be good? I think that is possible. And I pray for our country that we make good choices, because I do genuinely believe the Lord reserves his prerogative to stir up an enemy. Now, verse 20 says something that is so sad to me, referring to Jehoram. No one was sorry that he died. Wow. I don't want that said of me. I would like a few people to miss me. But I think that's a sober phrase for all of us, that we would live lives that are honorable, that there are people who mourn us. Because, you know what, we weren't perfect, but we sought to do the right thing. Now, the rest of the passage deals with this vile man, Jehu. Now, in fairness to Jehu, he receives from Elisha the prophet an instruction: annihilate the family of Ahab. Why? Because Ahab was like the evil king of Israel. But, boy, is it terrible. I mean, the way it's done. And then Jehu gets rid of all the prophets of Baal. And you're like, well, I suppose God wanted that. And God did affirm that. And you think, is he kind of a dangerous, vile man who is obeying God? But then you find out in the end, no, he hated the follower of the Lord. He worshiped his own stuff, and he is not listed as a good king. So in all of these things, there are principles for us to learn. And I would say the one I'm taking away is this happened because they abandoned the Lord. I don't want to do that. And secondly, no one was sorry he died. I'm hoping that's not me. Some difficult reading today, but some good principles to ponder. God bless you. Have a great day.